Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Wednesday. Well, it looks like this is the part of the revolution where they start throwing their political opponents in jail. Wow, that was fast. It was just a week ago they were telling us about unity. Remember that? What we didn't know at the time is they meant that everyone with power should unite against the rest of the country. Unity meant oligarchy. Oh. Doug Mackey learned that the hard way this morning. Mackey is a 31-year-old conservative journalist from Florida. At 7 a.m., FBI agents showed up at Mackey's house. They threw him in handcuffs and they dragged him to a cell. He now faces 10 years in prison. His crime? He made fun of powerful Democrats on social media. As the federal criminal complaint puts it, quote, Mackey made coordinated use of social media to spread disinformation relevant to the impending 2016 presidential election. This disinformation, the Biden administration solemnly explained, quote, often took the form of memes. Yes, memes. Online mockery. Mockery online is now illegal when it's aimed at the wrong people. Doug Mackey hurt their feelings, so they put him in jail. According to Joe Biden's Justice Department, Doug Mackey violated 18 U.S. Code Section 241. He did this by tricking people, like the dastardly trickster that he is, into not voting in the presidential election. What's interesting is that prosecutors showed no evidence whatsoever that Doug Mackey actually tricked anyone into anything, voting or not a single person. But that doesn't matter, shrieks CNN. Doug Mackey is a bad person with bad views. And by the way, we have no idea what Doug Mackey's views are. We don't care. What CNN is telling us is that those views are a crime. He's a criminal. Lock him up. Give him a longer sentence than we give to rapists, which they're trying to do. As of tonight, that is the official position of the Lynch Mob channel. But hold on a minute, as a legal matter. Have you ever read 18 U.S. Code Section 241? Probably not, but you should. Look it up. When you read it, you will learn that Joe Biden's Justice Department is lying in a very obvious way, and that should make you very nervous. It turns out that federal law does not ban memes, or for that matter, misinformation, whatever that is. The law that Biden's prosecutors are citing instead prohibits, quote, conspiring to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate anyone from exercising the right to vote. According to the law, that would include kidnapping voters, invading their homes, sexually abusing them. Doug Mackey didn't do any of that, not even close to any of that. Doug Mackey made memes. Therefore, he's a domestic terrorist. Speech is violence, dissent is a felony. What, you may be wondering, does a case like this mean for the First Amendment? Well, it means that it's effectively suspended. You can now be arrested for saying the wrong things. And at 7 a.m. this morning, one journalist actually was arrested for that. Almost no one tonight seems to be defending him. He had bad thoughts. He deserves it. They think it's okay. And that shouldn't surprise you, because we're clearly living under some form of martial law at the moment. How do we know that? Well, here's one indication. There are nearly 10,000 federal troops in our capital city tonight. Ooh, that's a hint. Why are they there? How long will they be staying? No one is being very specific about any of that, so you're left to draw your own conclusions, which people naturally are. And by the way, it's not making anyone more moderate. If you're really worried about extremism, you probably wouldn't put 10,000 federal troops in your capital city, making everyone more radical and crazy. But they don't care about that. The point of this whole highly militarized exercise is to remind you of what Chairman Mao once famously said. Political power grows from the barrel of a gun. Unfortunately, that is true in every country at all times. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy is no genius, but he does understand that. As he explained today, as long as his political opponents exist, those soldiers will stay.
The threat to the country is not over, right? We still have 5,000 National Guard members surrounding the Capitol complex. Why? Because there are still existing threats, present threats to the security of the Capitol. And so long as Donald Trump is empowered by Senate Republicans, there is still the chance that he is going to incite another attempt at the Capitol. The threat is still very real to American democracy.
Okay. So as long as there are people in this country who persist in disagreeing with Chris Murphy, explains Chris Murphy, we're going to need to keep thousands of heavily armed soldiers on the scene. Why specifically? Because, and we're quoting now, the threat is still very real to American democracy. But wait, democracy requires soldiers? We thought it was voluntary. If you're starting to think that maybe someone at some point secretly redefined the term democracy, changing its meaning to roughly 180 degrees from what it was just last year, you may be onto something. What we're looking at now is not democracy in the classical Athenian sense, where everyone gets to vote and the voice of everyone matters equally. No. What we're looking at now is instead democracy in the 1970s Eastern Bloc People's Democratic Republic sense. This new version of democracy is a democracy where everyone fervently agrees with the people in power or else they go immediately to jail. Doug Mackey's problem, it turns out, is that he didn't properly understand what democracy is. Thankfully, Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio does understand it, and he explained it to us today. We're not letting those soldiers go home, Tim Ryan said, until they do what our special operations forces did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Watch this.
Who in our government and our military have had experience around crowd control, maybe even special operations forces in Iraq and Afghanistan? Like, how can we learn everything we need to learn to reset the posture on Capitol Hill? And we're not going to let the National Guard go home, or we're not going to create an unsafe environment for the country's business until we have that figured out.
Oh, they're specialists in controlling unruly populations. We get it. Rather than answer our questions or improve our lives, you're bringing in people with guns to remind us that you're in charge and dissent is illegal. That's a big change. You may have thought you were a decent American in good standing. 10 years ago, nobody in this country would have called your views extreme. They weren't extreme then. You don't think they're extreme now? You've always considered yourself a pretty moderate person. Live your life and get along with others. Oh, that's not possible now because the rules have changed. You are now a dangerous insurgent. You are no different from a bloodthirsty Pashtun in Helmand province or an ISIS terrorist in Erbil. You're part of a guerrilla insurgency.